for staying with us. Of course, I promised that we're having our guest tonight. Our guest is Samuel Tawish, who is a political writer. We'll be discussing matters governance tonight. Welcome, sir, and thank you for gracing our studios.
Thank you so much.
All right, now we'll be getting right ahead where we'll be discussing the issue Punguza Mizigo initiative that has caused mixed reactions, and we saw the High Court stopping the 47 county assemblies across the country from debating the matter. What's the way forward?
Well, first and foremost, I think it is important for Kenyans to appreciate the fact that there's that agitation to have a change in the constitution. And that is why you see different political factions are coming out in trying to, to woo voters, rather the electorates, in an attempt to see whether we can really have this referendum by the end of the day. But the biggest puzzle we've had, just like you've mentioned, is that with the Third Way Alliance that is led by Uhuru court, already they have hit a snag because with the stoppage by the court, it means they can't move any further, at least for now. But that does not mean, because now if there's actually a Kenyan who's going to petition that maybe they did not follow the due process, and as far as collecting the views, there was no public participation, and as far as collecting the views from the people, the ordinary people, regarding this referendum push. And also there's been a question regarding how IEBC managed to verify the over 1 million signatures by the registered voters here in Kenya. Some of the people actually have argued that probably, IEBC did not follow due diligence and as far as actually scrutinizing the signatures is concerned. But again, that's said and done. I think the most important thing is for us now to wait until that matter is dispensed by the courts, because now that it's actually being handled by the courts, we can't comment further than that. We just have to wait the fate that the court is going to give in as far as that is concerned.
But Mr. Ngari, when he was speaking about this matter, he was saying that electoral body does not have a repository or a specimen signatures to just compare and let us know about if they are real or not. And now why are they saying they might just not be applicable?
Oh, well, you remember last time when I remember during the CORD, that is the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, yes, when they were pushing to have a referendum and they were actually collecting signatures from Kenyans. They managed to collect, I believe, about 1.4 million signatures, which they took to IEBC for verification. But again, after scrutinization, IEBC came out and said, the CORD did not meet the threshold required because, again, some of the signatures were not authentic. I can't quite speak authoritatively as to what machinery does or the infrastructure that IEBC has in as far as verification of these signatures is concerned, because that is also a question on its own. It's actually a very big concern. How do they verify that this is a signature? Because there can never be, a tool really to tell that these are authentic signatures in as far as electoral voters or the electorates are concerned, because there are people who append these signatures and they need to verify. So I'm not very certain as of now whether really IEBC has the machinery, they have the right infrastructure to look into the genuine and authentic signatures to verify this particular push.
Well, thank you. All right, now another matter that this bill brings about is reducing the constituencies from 290 to 47. So people think that this might just help in reducing the economic burden upon the country. What's your thought about that?
Well, in trying to reduce the public wage bill and trying to see how we can maybe ameliorate the ordinary Kenyans who are already actually overburdened in as far as paying taxes are concerned. Of course, one of the biggest concerns that Kenyans have had is that we have a bigger representation. That beyond maybe what we otherwise will need. Anyone will really question why will you need like 400 lawmakers to represent all these people in the National Assembly and in the Senate, whilst we still have also the county assemblies with over 1,000 people representing the same people. We still have our president, we have a deputy president, we still have women representative, and I'm sure you'll be getting into that question about the women representative. Now that you're a lady, I hope you're not going to feel bad regarding my comment on the same. So, but generally, I think we need to look into an approach to reduce the wage bill broadly, not necessarily by reducing just the number of lawmakers. One is about how we can seal the loopholes of corruption, because that is the biggest avenue that the Kenyan taxpayers' money has been going to the corrupt individuals. So those are some of the avenues that we really need to look into. The question of maybe so many allowances that even the current lawmakers are actually taking home, for example, has also been a very big question question from Kenyans. They're asking, why do we have to pay these individuals? We are giving them monthly salaries, but again, we are giving them allowances every other day for them to deliberate, or rather for them to do the same work that you are paying them to do. So there are so many questions that as Kenyans, we need to soberly sit down and see how we are going to agree moving forward. Because if we want to be deceivers of ourselves, assume that nothing is happening, then in the long run, we are going to have a country without actually a single coin even to run the affairs of government. And that is going to be very dangerous for this economy.
Mentioning about corruption, I've heard you mentioning corruption now that we have a lot of cases in the court. Example, the CS Henry Rotich has a case pending in the court, as well as the Kiambu governor. What do you think? Because now that these cases are reoccurring, and yet these guys want the number of the representatives to be reduced. I thought Uhuru court could be having a point, but it seems that this bill is not getting to that.
Well, you know, there's, I mean, for Uhuru court, I do not want to vilify him and maybe say his initiative is, rather give a blanket condemnation and say his initiative doesn't hold any water, or it doesn't have any meaning, or maybe Kenyans do not identify with some of the issues that the Punguza Mzigo initiative is actually carrying around. It is only that maybe it is not inculcating everything, it's not bringing on board everything or every concern that all Kenyans, maybe a majority of Kenyans for that matter, really feel we need to change this and that in as far as our constitution is concerned, if it's about governance. Because if you come with only one bit of saying we need to reduce the number of members of parliament, or even the maybe the senators, so how are we going to, because this is going to be like a bait to the MCS in the county assemblies to approve this bill, you understand? But again, by the end of the day, you need the support of these very lawmakers who are in office today to campaign for this very referendum. Don't forget that the process of the referendum, they have to get the signatures from the 24 counties. After all this process of the signatures, get the support from the 24 counties, they have to get a nod and approval from both the National Assembly and the Senate. And now you're talking about reducing the number of the same people you seek support in pushing the agenda of this particular bill. So you will notice that Uhuru court bill actually is doomed to fail from the word go, because again, these are the same people even who pass the budget. As we speak today, the 2019-2020 financial year budget allocation that was read by Henry Rotich did not factor in even the question of the referendum. And you'll need the goodwill, or rather the mercy of the members of parliament at least, to pass some, to accept or even to accommodate having this referendum in place.
Quite interesting. Now, moving on to the matters in the county. Governors were seen demanding for more money, and the president came out so fiercely saying there is no need for them to be added. But there is no money, actually, that was his point, that there is no money. But here you have governors, they need more allocation for, they need to be given more money for the functioning of the counties. Do you think it is right for them to demand, especially at this particular point where we see the state of the economic state of the country deteriorating?
Well, there's one thing we need to appreciate. As President Kenyatta, I did not suppose that maybe this country is going to be run by the goodwill of the president who is in place. I mean, we are governed by the rule of law. If the constitution dictates that maybe county is supposed to get a certain amount of money in a given financial year, then I think that should be the case. But as it is today, I think President Kenyatta is coming out frankly and saying we need to reason together. We need to be realistic that maybe the money that we need at the moment is not actually available. We can try to see how we can use the few resources we have in form of money, so that maybe when we get more money, we will actually take it, we'll actually give to the governors or to the county governments. So it is important for the governors actually to appreciate matters. It is a right for county governments to get this money. But again, the reality is the president is saying we do not have this money at the moment. Remember, the president is battling so many other things. He needs to see the Big Four agenda actually succeed. He's actually battling the greatest cancer we are having today in this country called corruption. And so when you see all these things, and this is where actually a lot of money has actually gone in. So the president is trying to see how he can seal this loophole so that by the end of the day, all the monies that maybe the county governments really require, they will be getting this money without a lot of hassles and tussles. So, but by going to court, because again, I do not want to comment further than that. By going to court, I mean the governors seem to be determined really to get this money. They are determined to get a piece of what they believe is rightfully theirs. So we'll have to just wait until when the courts dispense this matter.
But again, talking about allocation, you find that do you feel the allocation shouldn't be the problem, because some counties have done so much with what they were given? For example, Makueni County, there's so much that has been done, while other counties is all corruption. Do you think the matter of allocation is also an aspect that should be discussed?
Well, you know, there's a criteria with which, these allocations are actually done. One is, I think it's about the population. The population the people in those particular counties. But again, we need also to see accountability and transparency in as far as the monies that have been allocated to these counties are concerned, because that has been the biggest, question also Kenyans have been asking. Why is it that we are getting, billions of shillings every other financial year, but there's nothing to show for it? Most of these actually finances go to just pay but salaries. They're not doing much in form of development, because again, if we continue like this, we'll just be but a conveyor belt. We get the money from the national government and end up paying salaries for the county county workers, but there's no big service rendered to the people at the county level. So those are some of the things that we really need to look into as governors. Much as we are agitating and looking for more money from the national government, what is it that we have done so far in as far as the monies that have been allocated to these counties are concerned? Take a case of, for example, Turkana. People have been questioning, why are we having people dying of hunger today? Yet Turkana has very fertile and arable for that matter, save for maybe lack of water. Why don't we actually concentrate on maybe constructing dams and ensure that we have irrigation so that the people can now go back to the farms so that we don't hear these stories of people dying of hunger simply because there's no water to do this? Why do we have this year in, year out? It's something that is workable, and that is the reasoning behind having this devolution, so that the people can really determine what is important, what is a priority for them. Yes. But today, it is like we have also devolved corruption. We are taking this money to the county governments. The governors are taking this money to themselves and to their cronies. And now you can see why Titu, the governor for Kiambu, actually accused alongside the wife. That is a very pathetic story, by the way. I do not think that this is actually where we need to go as a country. We need to ensure that this money actually resonates with what the people want on the ground. We need to ask the people, public participation, what is it that they need as priority? And in most cases, when these individuals go to campaign, by the way, they purport to understand really what are the pressing issues for the electorates. But again, once they get elected, they get into this office, it's like they get a new baptism altogether. Yeah. They forget what is it that is important and a priority for the people. So I think that very syndrome of corruption that was in the national government has trickled down to the county government. But I'm very happy that the office of the DPP, the DCI, the EACC, and now we are also seeing the judiciary actually complementing these anti-graft agencies are doing at least a commendable job. We need to actually give them support and also give President Uhuru Kenyatta support so that we can deal with this corruption.
Great. Another question that comes to the picture when dealing with corruption, is it a matter that can really be won? The war against corruption, are we really going to win this particular war? Because some people have also argued that some of them are using this particular aspect of corruption to channel attention of people to 2022 politics. What do you think?
One will ask a very genuine question. Actually, are we not feeling the consequences of corruption in our country? Is corruption actually not happening? Is it not taking place in our country? Our leaders don't engage in corruption? Those are pertinent questions that we need to ask even before we go further. That is a true fact. We are having people who have been elected into office, instead of them engaging into serving the people who elected them, they are only but occupied in looting every other day and ensuring that there's no money completely in the exchequer. That's a very sad state of affairs. As a country, we need to genuinely interrogate this situation and see how we are going to support the initiative to ensure that we rid of corruption completely. It is true that there are some people who are coming out and saying probably this is a political witch hunt, it's a diversionary tactic as far as the 2022 politics is concerned. But again, you can clearly see who the victims are, who are the people coming out and lashing out at the investigative agencies or the anti-graft agencies, are the same people who presumably are suspects in as far as the war against corruption is concerned. But we are seeing the political goodwill. You remember some years back, President Kenyatta had a very big challenge. We had Raila Odinga of ODM on the other side opposing every other thing that President Kenyatta was actually making, every other initiative. But again, now you have him on board. President Kenyatta himself has demonstrated more than ever. He's demonstrated that political goodwill and determination to ensure that we get rid of corruption in our country. He has empowered the office of the DCI, the office of the DPP, the EAC. So now it tells you that now what we need to do is only but to give them time, to give them support. I'm very hopeful. It might not happen overnight. It might not just happen this year. But again, by the end of the day, if we continue with the same pace, if you are going to tackle corruption with the genuineness that it deserves, then you are going to win this war against corruption. But when you have individuals who are supposed to be supporting the president, coming out with diversionary tactics and bringing in the 2022 politics and saying probably this is targeting a particular individual or a particular community, I don't think that should be the way forward. The question is, who is corrupt? Shouldn't we deal with this individual or individuals, or should we just let them go?
Awesome. All right. Do you think the role of opposition still exists? Because now, since handshake, a lot of things have taken place. Do you think that opposition still has a place in Kenya?
Well, I mean, in as far as the opposition is concerned, most people in Kenya have been used to, politics, combative politics. Politics of demonstrations, politics of opposing each and every initiative just for the sake of it. But I think politics today has taken a completely different trajectory. It has taken a relatively, calm approach towards issues or matters regarding governance in the country. So I will say it is not like what we used to see. People may say, for example, because last time when we had the high cost of living, the opposition could come out and do demonstrations and maybe throw stones. We could see tear gas and such kind of ugly things. But today they're using actually the right platforms, the right channels. Because again, you can oppose an idea through maybe picketing and demonstrations. Right. You can as well do this through the floor of the House, that is the National Assembly or the Senate, because these are the legal institutions that these lawmakers or the opposition can use to champion whatever or to advocate for whatever kind of issues they will want to advocate for the people. So it shouldn't necessarily be viewed because former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has had a handshake with President Kenyatta, and so it directly implies that the opposition is not doing its oversight role. They're doing it as much as they are required. The only thing is we are not seeing those other things that maybe we have been used to seeing as a country in terms of demonstrations and protests.
Thank you, Samuel. All right, now let's take a look at a clip right here just before we continue.
Tulio viongozi katika taifa letu la Kenya, kutoka MCA na wale wengine wote, sisi tuungane, tushirikiane, tufanye mambo ya maendeleo ya taifa letu la Kenya. Kwa sababu kila mtu amepatiwa kazi yake. Father na bishop wako na kazi yao. Wale wanasiasa wako na kazi yao. Kama wewe sio shahidi, wewe sio mtu ya kusaidia kwa upelelezi ama uchunguzi, wewe sio wakili wa aina yoyote, wewe sio hakimu kule kotini, sasa mambo ya ufisadi unaenda kutangaza kwa baraza, kwa mazishi, ikusaidie na nini? Wewe fanya kazi yako ambayo umepatiwa. Wacha hiyo kazi ya kupigana na ufisadi, kwa sababu ndio tumeamua kama serikali ya Jubilee itekelezwe na wale wenye ujuzi na wale wamepatiwa uwezo huo na katiba na sheria ya Kenya. Tuwapatie nafasi watekeleze jukumu hiyo ya kuhakikisha kwamba mali ya umma inatumiwa kwa njia ya sawasawa, na msiingize huko mambo ya siasa. Kama wewe ni mwanasiasa, wewe unafanya siasa. Kama wewe umepatiwa jukumu ya kufanya huko, wewe unafanya kazi hiyo.
Tumekubaliana na county commissioner wetu Bwana Kigoshi. We are going to deploy an ACC who is in charge of this unit, so that this becomes a security operation. And effective now, tutakubaliana na wewe na county security team, you ring up this whole place. Fortunately for us here in both this area and Nyamira, we are very cooperative governors. Tutakubaliana hapa vile tuliongea na Mheshimiwa Gavana Ongwae, we close up this place. You will get your documents, but it's a security operation place. Mtu ambaye anaregarega hapa na mambo ya brokerage tumunyoroshe. That is it. Kuna kitu kingine. Na niwaambie hivi watumishi wa serikali mko hapa munisikize. Tuache hii upuzi ya mambo ya kuongaonga watu, hakuna kitu kama hiyo.
If you seek a position of authority, it must be on the basis of what you are going to be able to do to serve your fellow man, not to serve yourself. And that is why, wapende wasipende, rafiki ama adui, ndugu ama dada, wewe kama unataka kuingiana na mambo ya ufisadi, yeah, tutapigana na wewe. You can be my brother, you can be my sister, you can be my closest political ally, you can be whatever you are, but you are an enemy of the Republic of Kenya, and we will fight with you.
All right, Samuel, as a political analyst, do you think that the Deputy President is really genuine about his fight against corruption?
Well, I mean, the Deputy President has been very frank in his speeches, in his, I mean, whenever you see him out there actually speaking, you can clearly see what the message is trying to pass across. I may not really be the jury to tell whether he's sincere or not, but again, Kenyans out there can judge because again, there's been a genuine question, or rather genuine concern, why you'll have people who are supposed to be leading or helping President Kenyatta in his agendas, in his initiative, for example, in the fight against corruption. You have somebody like, for example, Deputy President William Ruto, who sometimes comes out and says, or rather disputes what the EACC is doing, what the Office of the DCI is doing, or the DPP. Yet on the other hand, you have his boss, who is President Kenyatta, saying he has full faith and confidence in these very institutions.
Could that be meaning there's a rift?
That is, exactly, and that is the point. You have, for example, Kipchumba Murkomen, who is a Senate majority leader actually in the Senate. These are people who are supposed to hold brief for the president. They're supposed to hold brief for the ruling party, but they are actually making contradictory remarks every now and then. What does it tell you? The people who are pulling in different directions. So maybe to just answer your question, somehow they may not be genuine.
Thank you, Samuel, for gracing our studios tonight. It's a pleasure to have you joining us.
Pleasure to.
And of course, we're taking a very short break, but we'll be back with more stories.